The current state of negotiations between the United States and Iran in 2026 is highly fragile, complex, and shaped by both diplomacy and ongoing tension on the ground. Rather than formal, direct meetings, most communication is happening indirectly through mediators such as Qatar and Pakistan, which are acting as channels to pass proposals, responses, and conditions between the two sides. This indirect approach reflects the deep mistrust that still defines U.S.-Iran relations, where neither side is fully willing to engage face-to-face without clear guarantees. At the same time, there is a temporary and unstable ceasefire in place, but it is far from secure. Small-scale clashes, especially around the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, continue to occur, reminding the world that the situation could escalate into a broader conflict at any moment. This creates a paradoxical environment where diplomacy and confrontation exist side by side. Adding to the complexity is the fact that both countries are negotiating under pressure, military, political, and economic. The United States maintains a strong military presence in the region, signaling that it is prepared to respond if tensions rise further, while also using sanctions as leverage to push Iran toward concessions. Iran, on the other hand, faces significant economic challenges due to these sanctions, which increases its incentive to negotiate but also strengthens its insistence on securing meaningful relief before making major compromises. Reports suggest that there is a draft framework or preliminary agreement being discussed, possibly as a first step toward a more comprehensive deal. However, such a framework is still under review, and disagreements over key issues, especially nuclear limits and sanctions removal, have slowed progress. Another important aspect of the current negotiations is timing and political calculation. Both sides are trying to avoid appearing weak, either domestically or internationally. Leaders in both countries must consider public opinion, political rivals, and regional allies, all of which influence how flexible they can be at the negotiating table. This makes even small concessions difficult, as they can be interpreted as strategic losses. As a result, negotiations tend to move slowly, with periods of apparent progress followed by setbacks or renewed tensions. In essence, the present situation is best described as a delicate balancing act. There is a clear desire on both sides to avoid a full-scale war, which would be costly and destabilizing for the entire region and beyond. At the same time, neither side is willing to abandon its core demands, which keeps the negotiations stuck in a cycle of cautious engagement and recurring friction. The coming weeks and months will be critical, as even minor incidents could derail talks, while sustained diplomatic effort could gradually build enough trust to move toward a more stable and lasting agreement. The United States is approaching these negotiations with a clear focus on long-term security and strategic dominance, particularly in the Middle East. Its primary objective is to ensure that Iran does not develop nuclear weapons, which Washington views as a major threat not only to regional stability but also to global security. For this reason, the U.S. is pushing for strict limitations on Iran's nuclear program, including reducing uranium enrichment levels, limiting stockpiles, and allowing international inspections to verify compliance. This concern is rooted in years of tension over Iran's nuclear ambitions, and the U.S. sees this moment as an opportunity to impose stronger and more permanent restrictions than previous agreements. At the same time, the U.S. wants to prevent Iran from advancing its ballistic missile program, which could potentially deliver nuclear or conventional warheads over long distances. Beyond the nuclear issue, the United States is also trying to curb Iran's regional influence. Iran has built a network of allies and proxy groups across the Middle East, and Washington views this as a source of instability and conflict. By negotiating limits on Iran's support for such groups, the U.S. hopes to reduce tensions in countries like Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Another key objective is maintaining the security of global energy routes, especially the Strait of Hormuz, through which a significant portion of the world's oil supply passes. Ensuring that this passage remains open and safe is critical for the global economy, and the U.S. sees Iran's influence over this area as a potential risk that must be managed through both diplomacy and deterrence. At the same time, the United States is carefully using economic pressure as a negotiating tool. Sanctions remain one of its most powerful levers, and Washington is not willing to lift them quickly without concrete concessions from Iran. Instead, the U.S. strategy is to offer gradual relief in exchange for verifiable actions by Iran, creating a step-by-step process that ensures compliance over time. Additionally, maintaining a visible military presence in the region serves as a form of pressure and reassurance to allies, signaling that the U.S. is committed to enforcing any agreement and responding to threats if necessary. Overall, the U.S. is trying to shape an outcome where Iran's capabilities are limited, its behavior is more predictable, and the balance of power in the region remains favorable to American interests. Iran is entering these negotiations with a strong focus on economic survival, national sovereignty, and strategic balance. Years of sanctions imposed by the United States have placed immense pressure on Iran's economy, leading to inflation, currency devaluation, and reduced oil exports. As a result, Iran's top priority in the talks is the full or substantial removal of sanctions, along with access to frozen financial assets held abroad. Iranian leaders see sanctions relief not just as an economic necessity but as a matter of national dignity, arguing that they should not have to make major concessions simply to regain what they consider their rightful economic freedom. This makes them cautious about any agreement that offers only partial or reversible relief, as past experiences have made them skeptical about long-term U.S. commitments. At the same time, Iran is determined to preserve its nuclear program, at least at a civilian level. It insists on its right to enrich uranium under international law and does not want to completely dismantle its nuclear infrastructure. While Iran may be willing to accept limits, monitoring, or temporary reductions, it strongly resists any demand that would eliminate its ability to restart or expand the program in the future. This position is tied to both national pride and strategic deterrence, as Iran views its nuclear capability as a bargaining tool and a form of protection against external threats. In addition, Iran is unlikely to agree to major restrictions on its missile program or defense systems, which it considers essential for national security in a volatile region. Another major objective for Iran is to end military pressure and maintain its regional influence. This includes lifting naval restrictions and reducing the presence of foreign forces near sensitive areas like the Strait of Hormuz. Iran also wants to retain its network of alliances and partnerships across the Middle East, which it sees as a key part of its strategic depth. From Tehran's perspective, these relationships are defensive rather than aggressive, helping it counterbalance rivals and avoid isolation. Overall, Iran's goal is to reach an agreement that improves its economic situation and reduces external threats while still allowing it to operate as an independent and influential regional power, rather than a constrained or weakened state.